Hola chicos y buenas noches. Hoy vamos a hablar del subjuntivo en las cláusulas adjetivales. Se puede encontrar toda esta información en el libro de texto en la página 292. So let's talk about subjunctive and indicative again. Mood. Just to see what you remember. Remember that mood refers to the attitude of the speaker towards what he or she is saying. We're going to use the indicative mood for what is, or what is true, what is factual. The imperative mood, do you remember what we're going to use that for? That's right, what you tell people to do. And then the subjunctive. If the indicative is for what is, then what are we going to use the subjunctive to express? You got it, what might be or what is possible. Subjunctive with adjective clauses is what we're going to talk about next. Last time we were talking about subjunctive with noun clauses. That was the you weirdo, expressing emotion and trying to get people to do things. So this time, instead of trying to tell people what to do in that passive-aggressive way, we're going to describe things that may or may not exist. So we're going to be using adjective clauses to do that. First, we need to think about what adjectives do. What do adjectives do? They describe things. So what are adjective clauses? Well, they're going to be clauses, meaning phrases that have a subject and a verb that describe something else in the statement. These clauses can require the use of the subjunctive depending on what you as the speaker intend to say. An adjective clause is a clause that describes the noun in the main clause. The noun in the main clause is called the antecedent. So look at these examples. Tengo una chaqueta que es de algodón. My antecedent is my chaqueta, my jacket. It's the thing that I am describing with the phrase that is in purple, es de algodón. That is describing all of those, the subject, the verb, and the additional information is describing one thing, the antecedent, which is the chaqueta. I'm using the indicative there because I know that it exists. Look at the second example. Quiero una chaqueta que sea de cuero. Again, my antecedent is still la chaqueta, and my adjective clause that is describing it is still talking about it being made of something, this time leather. But why am I using subjunctive in this statement? Because I said quiero una chaqueta instead of tengo una chaqueta. The antecedent didn't change, but I'm going to change from indicative to subjunctive because I'm saying I want a jacket. That doesn't mean that I know that that particular jacket exists. So the adjective clause must have the subjunctive if the antecedent is a person or thing that does not exist, or if we don't know if it exists. That makes it indefinite or uncertain, which is naturally one reason why we use the subjunctive when we're talking about things that are indefinite or uncertain. So if I say, no hay una chaqueta que sea de cuero en esta tienda, I'm talking about something that doesn't exist. There is not a jacket in this store that is made of leather. I'm using subjunctive because I know that it doesn't exist. If I say, necesito una chaqueta que sea de cuero, I'm saying that I need it. It is indefinite. Therefore, I'm also going to use the subjunctive. Why? Because I'm describing things that may or may not exist. Think back to why we use the subjunctive, to talk about things that may be. Doesn't that make sense? So, let's talk about what indicates indefinite. It's going to be any negative or word or expression like nadie, ningún, ninguna, nada, nunca, all of those negative words. Any question, because we're talking about something that may not exist. Verbs like buscar, necesitar, or querer that express the need for something that is not yet possessed. That doesn't mean only these verbs, but any verb that expresses the need for something that is not yet possessed. Look for un and una here as opposed to el or la. Things that indicate that something does not exist for sure are going to be any negative verb like no hay, no tener, no buscar, no saber, no conocer, etc. On the flip side, things that are going to express definite antecedents or things that do exist are going to be the opposites of these. So whereas no I would express something that does not exist, I is going to express something that does. Whereas un or una is going to express something that may not exist, el or la generally will express something that does. The adjective clause must have the indicative if the antecedent is a person or thing that definitely does exist. So you're going to be looking for those clues. Quiero la chaqueta que es de cuero. We know it exists because I said I want the jacket as opposed to a jacket. Tengo una chaqueta que es de cuero. We know it exists because I said tengo, I have it. Even though I'm using una, it means that, but look at the verb. I'm saying tengo, which means I have it for sure. When the sentence is a question, we don't know if the antecedent exists or not. Therefore, you still have to use the subjunctive. ¿Buscas una chaqueta que sea de cuero? I don't know if it exists. I'm asking you if you're looking for one. ¿Tienen ustedes unos pantalones que tengan rayas? I don't know if it exists. It's a question. Therefore, we have to use the subjunctive. Just like when we're using noun clauses with you, weirdo, anytime we're expressing any kind of uncertainty or doubt, and that's what questions do, we must use the subjunctive. Remember that the main clause is never going to have a verb in the subjunctive, just like with noun clauses. We always use our trigger phrases in the indicative. Es importante que, quiero que. Same thing here. No hay una chaqueta que sea de cuero. I is indicative. Compré unos pantalones que tenían rayas. Compré is indicative, but in the past. ¿Tienes un bolígrafo que no sea rojo? Even though we're using subjunctive in the second part of the question, we're using indicative in the first part because that's what we're sure about. It's the second part that we're not sure if it exists or not. So, here's your review. Remember that adjective clauses describe something in the dependent clause, the first clause. We use the subjunctive when the adjective clause describes something that does or may not exist. We use the indicative when the adjective clause describes something that we know exists. And we're never going to use the subjunctive in the dependent clause. So here's your reflection. Imagine that you walk into this department store and you're looking for some items of clothing. I want you to jot down 2 statements of things that you need or that you want, that you're looking for. And I want you to jot down 2 statements of things that you see that do exist in the store. So you're making 2 statements of things that you need or want from the store, and 2 statements of things that you do know exist in the store. And we'll check those tomorrow. Hasta mañana, chicos.